Hart,
I'm Chelsea Fitzpatrick.
and we're here interviewing James Barnett from the Access Soup Kitchen and Men's Shelter. Mr. Barnett, thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
How long have you been with the Access Soup Kitchen and Men's Shelter?
I've been actually employed there for 7 years. I've been the executive director since July of last year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
And tell us about it. How'd you get involved with the Soup Kitchen and Men's Shelter?
I've been doing work at shelters for about 37 years. Actually, this one, I actually stayed there for about 40 days in June of 2013.
Okay.
Okay.
Like a lot of the guys, there was a domestic problem. Actually, we were getting custody of 3 grandchildren, and my wife and I had a disagreement over getting custody, and so I moved out. I ended up at the shelter. After being there about 30 days, a position came open, and Andrew asked me if I were interested in going to work, and I've been there ever since.
Great.
That's excellent. So tell us a little bit about what you do at the Soup Kitchen and the Men's Shelter.
All right. Of course, everybody knows, as I was telling you earlier, we feed meals 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Last year, we fed just over 51,000 meals. For a city of size of Frankfort, you're looking at, what, almost twice the population.
Yeah.
But that is maybe about 20% of what we actually do. We house, normally, this year, about 35 men every night. We have a program to where a gentleman who comes there can stay up to 4 months. We do not charge anything. We feed, they get all they want to eat. We furnish clothes, shoes, all toiletry items. We have washers and dryers. We furnished laundry detergent. We charge nothing. What we require is for them to stay alcohol and drug free and to save money for a safety net.
Okay.
The people that have completed that program, I'm running about an 83-84% success rate,
That's awesome.
where they move out, achieve stable housing, and come back and volunteer, but they don't come back to stay. The flip side is people that either don't go through it or get 1 or 2 checks, get $750, $1,000 and say, okay, I can make this work. About 15% of them make it. The other 85% end up at least coming back at least once.
Okay.
What are the challenges with running the Soup Kitchen and the Men's Shelter? Like, if you could just list a couple of the main ones. I'm sure there's some.
Public perception.
Perception?
People, I stand out front, and I have seen women walking from Pitpack or from down toward Plantford and cross the road, walk by us, and then cross back. Why? Because they know it's a men's shelter. I've seen people, when the light is backed up from the street right there at Pitpack, cars be backed up, somebody reach over and lock the door. Why? Because we're men's shelter. The stereotypical view is they're bums, they're addicts, they will steal, they'll, and it's not true. A couple of years ago, there was a kid from 2nd Street who was punched over on Still Street. All over Facebook within 15, 20 minutes was, I bet it was one of them guys from the men's shelter.
Oh.
He was a next door neighbor. It wasn't even anyone connected with us. But the public perception is it's a shelter. The people that stay there, you've got to watch them. They're dangerous. That's the biggest challenge, because I want people to understand that these men here are just like anybody else. Yes, there's some who have addiction problems, who have substance abuse problems. There's some that have mental problems. But the vast majority are people who have been in a domestic situation like mine, where they're going through a divorce, or it's boyfriend, girlfriend, they have a fight, one of them moves out, normally the male. They're people that their job has been outsourced, or in the case of one gentleman, he was working full time, The restaurant caught on fire. They told him it'd be for a couple of weeks. He was out of work for almost 3 months. He ended up getting evicted. They're just normal people.
Just
And-
kind of the life happens stuff.
Well, I mean, look at the government shutdown.
Yeah.
35 days. Look at how many civil employees who had been working for the U.S. government for years were standing in lines for
Yeah.
food boxes, or were contemplating selling their vehicles in order to make the mortgage payment. That is just a fact of life that most American families do not have a safety net to carry them more than 30 to 60 days. Past that, they're going to struggle. They're going to be in a position where if something doesn't happen, we're going to be homeless.
So as far as who you service, do you just service people in Frankfurt and Franklin
We
County?
have people, we have men staying there from Washington. We have men staying there from Texas, Alabama,
Wow.
Georgia,
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Okay.
Our population has been growing exponentially. One of the reasons is we're the only shelter left between Lexington and Louisville.
Wow.
Georgetown is basically more a rehab now than a men's shelter. The one in Shelbyville is totally a rehab. It is not a men's shelter anymore. So other counties from all over Kentucky and other states, we get people from all over.
Okay.
So what kind of specific programs do you have to get people back on their feet?
Okay, what we do is we work in coordination with HHCK, which is Homeless Housing Coalition of Kentucky. A gentleman named Kelly Asher comes over every Friday. And actually tomorrow, myself and a staff member are going to go through training in order to do the intakes for
Great.
HHCK.
Excellent.
We have them work with Frankfurt Housing Authority. We have Bobby Strickland from UNESCO. We have a gentleman from Surge, which are employment agencies in
Awesome.
Lexington.
Yeah.
They come down or they send us applications. They get for jobs. The main program we have is the honor program, which is prior to my going in front of the board and getting it started in May of 2016 was you could stay there 30 days. If you had a full-time job, you could get a 15-day extension, bringing your total to 45 days. The problem with that was if you didn't get a job until you had been there 25, 28 days, you're going to get one paycheck because most jobs hold back 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You can't rent a place on one paycheck.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're making $8, $9, $10 an hour. You're going to have a paycheck for, what, $400, maybe $450. We raised it so that they could stay a total of 4 months, 90 extra days. In that 4 months, a person making an average wage here of $9 an hour can normally save up to $3,000, $3,500 safety net.
Yeah.
I have 5 storage units at Southern Rights on Home Street. This year so far since January 1st, I've given out probably 20 couches, more than 100 beds. I don't know how many chest of drawers, end tables,
Yeah.
dishes,
That's
pots and
amazing.
pans. And what we do is we collect the donations. I store it. When someone moves out, not only from us now, this is not just from or just for the men's shelter and soup kitchen. I have resource officers at elementary schools and the high schools. I've had the lady from Hearn Elementary, Collins Lane, down here at Second Street call me. I have a family who has children that are sleeping on the floor. Rachel, who's the executive director at Simon House, a lady needs a refrigerator and a washer. I happen to have both of those in storage now. She'll get those Saturdays. So
That's great.
I feel like if all of the organizations get together, we pool our resources, just like all the women's shelter executives know what I can do. I know what services they offer. Anytime a family moving out or a family that just calls, if they need furniture, if they need certain types of food, she calls me.
Okay. So as far as donations, you guys just accept those year round, or
Year round. We accept, I don't turn anything down. And I'll tell you why. We got 10,000 cups from McDonald's one time. I had no use for them. And what the worst thing was, the lids.
Yeah.
So I kept them over there for, I don't know, 8 or 9 months. Well, I happened to have a gentleman who knew of a place in Lexington that could use them. And so they went there. We get take food. We pick up, last year we picked up roughly 150,000 pounds of donated food from Kroger and Walmart. Meats, fresh vegetables, fresh produce, bread, canned goods, all of it. We gave away probably 50,000 pounds there in the soup kitchen. What we do is we have shelving, we have a small deep freezer, we have tables, we put out boxes of apples, oranges, fresh lettuce, greens, squash, all of it, carrots, onions. We put out on one shelf, on one table we fill it full of bread. We fill the deep freezer up with packs of hamburger meat, chicken, pork, even steaks, whatever. We also have racks of clothing, women's coats, children's clothes, socks, the whole lineup of it. Anybody that comes in during Soup Kitchen, if they need some of that, they take a shopping bag, they put a couple packs of meat. Today we gave out 80 half gallons of milk.
Oh wow.
We picked it up this morning from Kroger. As soon as it came in, we put in what we needed for the soup kitchen itself in the refrigerator. The rest of it went right over there. People were coming in getting, and then this milk is dated the 28th of February, so it's good for another week at least.
Yeah.
They were taking, it was red top and the green top. So it's whole milk.
Whole milk and
And,
1%.
1%. People, all of it was gone. They just come in, they take one, take some bread, These are things I don't think the community knew we were doing. But it's not just that we give it out at Soup Kitchen. I take a load of meat, a box every week over to each of the women's shelters. I have taken stuff out to the emergency food pantry. We send bread and sweets and stuff over to King's Daughters. I want every social organization that's in the city to be connected in a way that the resources that we each have, we know what each other has, and we can get it to whoever needs it ASAP.
I think that's an excellent idea.
It is.
Because there's the need factor is growing here. A year ago, we would have been feeding 70 meals a day. We're running as many as 142 meals this year. We are feeding, last year, like I said, we fed over 51,000. We're probably going to be about 20% more than that this year. This is a small city.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If we're feeding 50,000 meals a year, that tells you there's a lot of need
There is, yeah.
in
Yeah.
this city.
Mm-hmm.
So it's growing, and have you noticed an uptake since you've been there? Like,
Oh yeah. Perfect example. 2 years ago, the average number of men who would be staying there in July would be 5 or 6 a night.
okay.
July of last year, it was 19 to 23.
Oh, wow.
We have never been over 31 people staying there in a night ever. We've been over 40 several times this year.
Oh, wow.
What's your maximum?
Our maximum is 52. Actually, that's our occupancy
Yeah.
by the fire marshal.
Yeah.
But when we were in some meetings over at emergency management
Oh yeah.
with Tom Russell and Captain Hopkins, Chief of Police, both the women's shelters, HHCK and DB shelter, we were discussing setting up an emergency shelter because we were worried we were going to have too many. And I made it plain then. Our occupancy is 52.
Okay.
If a 53rd male shows up and it's 30 degrees outside, I'm not turning him away
Yeah.
because there's no other place for him to go. Now we did have a church set up, an emergency shelter for families and women, when it got so cold back in January.
Yeah.
I think it was the week of the 30th, because it got down, the wind chill factor was, minus 20 that night, so.
If someone needed to reach out to the men's shelter and needed to stay there, how do they contact the shelter? How do
They
get set up?
can call us at 502-223-5179. They can actually call my cell phone. It's on and I'll give you one when I finish this, on my business card. It's 502-330-4749. They can email at admin.soupkitchen.com.
Okay, and if people want to volunteer,
We accept volunteers. I have groups. We have a group that comes in every day of the year, either churches, like today, Commonwealth Credit Union. They had a group of, I believe, 5 that came in and cooked the meal, prepared it. Then,
That's excellent.
once they got it prepared, another group from Commonwealth of 5 came in and served it. We have churches, Buffalo Trace, Jim Beam, the state government, different organizations come in. If someone wants to come in and just volunteer and help, they can call the 5179 number, ask for Robin Jones. She's our kitchen manager and volunteer coordinator. She'll get them a time and date set up that's convenient for them. If it's a male and he wants to come in after 2 p.m., because females are allowed in from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Oh, okay.
Once we revert back to a men's shelter, females aren't allowed in unless, like with Bible study that we have, they can come in as a group. We have one lady who actually, it's a ladies group, and they come in, excuse me, at 7 p.m. and they do a Bible study with the men, and it's fantastic.
Great.
it's amazing.
So the male wanted to come in, we would set up hours for him to come in.
Okay.
I will say I've learned that the shelter is much more plugged into the community than I even thought. And I consider
Yeah.
myself pretty plugged
Yeah.
in. So, is there a specific time of the year that you need the more volunteers than others, or is there?
No, it's something. Now we get slammed November through January.
That's
Yeah.
January
so-
1st. I mean,
yeah.
that's just the time of year.
Mm.
June, July, August, everybody's on vacation. It's the summer. You want to go out to the park. You want to go out on a boat, on the river, whatever. It slows way down. That would be a time that we would. There would be times we would be in need.
Mhm.
But truth is, year round. I wish it were that I could tell you, look, in the winter we need more, because there's not some, there's a greater need.
Yeah.
But the need's there year round, and it's not just volunteer. Let me tell you what I have challenged churches to do. When I had a meeting at the Ministerial Association with the president of the board, Stan Cochran, they asked me, what do you wish for us to do for you? And then he said, anything other than $1 million. Just come down, have a seat in the lobby where the TV is, sit down and talk to these guys, get to know them. And I'll tell you why. Being homeless isn't just not having a place to stay. If you walk down the street the way you're dressed, or you, and someone walks toward you, they're going to look at you in your eyes and they're going to say hi. They're going to acknowledge you. But what if it's a man in dirty clothes and a backpack on his back and his hair all ragged? They're going to look up, they're going to look to the side, but when they do that, they make that person feel invisible.
Yeah.
They make them feel like they don't matter, they don't count. It takes away their God-given dignity and respect. We are all God's creatures. We are all perfectly created. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how much you don't have. Everybody should be given the respect of at least a greeting,
Oh yeah,
acknowledging that you
definitely.
exist. I don't care if people don't ever give us a penny. God provides. But these guys and these women and these children at the women's shelters, they need to know that they're a part of the community. They need to know that even though I don't have a residence, I don't have an address right now, I'm not invisible. I'm not somebody that's forgotten. I'm not somebody that you can push to the side and just forget about. Coming down there and sitting, watching TV with these guys for 30 minutes. All it takes is time. It doesn't take money. It doesn't take material goods. All it takes is some time and to see how these guys react, to see how much of an impact it makes on them. There was a member of the board. His name is Danny Watson. For 9.5 years, he and 4 guys from his church, Capital City, the last Monday of every month, they would make a home cooked meal. He would bring it down to the shelter, and he would sit down with whoever's there, and he would eat dinner
That's
with them.
great.
And what he would tell them before they said blessing and people started eating was the story of the Last Supper. And then he would tell them this, and I tell this to people all the time because it makes such an impact. When Christ sat down at the Last Supper, he wasn't just eating to fill his belly. When you ate a meal with somebody in Christ's time, it was you telling them, I accept you. You're just like me. We're connected.
Yeah. The old
It was-
let's break bread together.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, if you could see the looks on somebody's face who had just, in the last 2 or 3 days, came into that shelter, the widening of their eyes, the smile, to know, just to feel like, well, damn, somebody cares. I'm not being looked at as a leper. I'm not being looked at as a bum or somebody unwanted. If I could have people do anything, it would be that. Simply because you're never going to break the stereotypical view that these men are no good, that these men are somehow less than everybody else because they're in a shelter, unless people can make it personal, unless people can do away with the ignorant stereotype and say, I just want to get to know this person. There's guys down there, I've had a lawyer stay there before who was still had his board certification. I've had a doctor stay there. I've had a master mechanic, several master electricians. I've had a police officer from Frankfurt Police Department. These are not people that, when people think of homeless, they don't think, oh, no, if you're a lawyer, you're never going to be out of a home. If you're a doctor, you're never going to not have an apartment. It happens. Hollywood celebrities get homeless, and professional athletes become homeless, and unfortunately, people that are middle class and below, is happening at a rising rate. So to answer that, just come down there and spend some time. You don't have to come down there and do anything, but let these guys know that, hey, you matter. You're a part of the community, and I just wanted to come down and say hi, spend a little time with you, check out what's on TV with you. For you, the women's shelter.
Yeah.
You know, the kids are the worst because it affects them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Particularly, we have a lot of kids come down there, and there was one who goes down here to 2nd Street, and one of my oldest grandson actually got in trouble at school because of the way he took up for her, because there was a couple of kids bullying her about, oh, you eat down there. Wow, your parents don't have enough to feed you.
Oh, that's horrible.
And the sad thing is, there's adults that have that same attitude. I don't know if you've ever heard of topics.
Yeah, I've heard of topics.
I have actually went on not to comment, but to read what people write about the soup kitchen. We had a gentleman who was a machinist out at Topi for 17 years. His job got outsourced to Brazil. They closed down that part of the plant. He had a 18-month-old Cadillac. He lost his apartment. He lost everything but that Cadillac. For 40 days, he pulled over across from the soup kitchen about 12 o'clock. He got out of it. He walked in. Well, on topics, there was a comment. Did anybody see that guy taking advantage? Don't give anything to them because they got guys over there driving brand new Cadillacs coming in out of ignorance. They didn't know this man's story. Or a young lady who I happen to know very well. She's an African American lady. She has 3 kids. Did anybody see that crackhead with the 3 kids going into the state ought to take her kids away? It's a shame that they don't know this lady out of ignorance. But that's, unfortunately, a lot of things that you see in the...
Yeah.
So would you suggest that people who volunteer and visit bring their family? Like do it like a family thing? Bring the
I
kids?
brought my wife and my 3 grandsons. We actually did a whole meal ourselves. I have my grandsons down there quite a bit. I want people, school groups, when 2nd Street or Hearn Elementary or the Academy or Country Day, Elkhorn, all these schools, Stewart's Home, they bring kids down there. I love it because these kids don't have you're not born with an opinion that says these are terrible people.
Yeah.
They interact, they laugh, they joke, and they see these people and they bond. It becomes a personal thing. It's the adults. And I want kids down there. I want schools to, high schools come in. They act as servers. They come in, one of them just came out, I can't remember the name of the house school now, just came in and decorated us for St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, that's
Great.
awesome.
They come in, they do the Valentine's Day decorations, Easter. These are high school groups. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Going forward with city development, how's the shelter being affected by the plans they're talking about in the community, or if at all?
Well, for us, what we have talked about at the committee is Frankfurt Housing putting forth an apartment, which the committee would have to raise funds to pay $450 a month rent on it. And it will be used as an emergency type shelter deal instead of where the women's shelters, if there's a single female or a family, they would normally try to find funds to put them up in a motel for a couple of days because where we have that whole building and we have a dorm that has 10 beds. Now, the rest of the guys, they have 6-inch mats and they sleep different places on the floor. The women's shelter, their room is even more limited. And they actually, as far as I know, have a waiting list.
Wow.
Yeah. And you're having a larger influx of women and families coming into this area homeless. That wouldn't be so much of a help for us because we've never been to where we would have to turn any man away, but it would be a major help to the women's shelter and possibly to the DV shelter, and so I'm all for it. Anything that will keep someone off the streets from sleeping under a bridge, or there was one lady that finally, about a month ago, got an apartment up here at Juniper Hills, had been sleeping in the field behind Save-A-Lot up on Louisville Road.
Okay.
She's a wonderful, sweet little lady. She has some mental issues. But the women's shelter financially wasn't able to help her. That's the big thing. There's programs just like at HHCK, but they're not available in Franklin County. If you're male and you want to get an apartment, you've got to go to Winchester. The only county open in this area is Clark County.
Wow.
Nothing else around. What I'm actually doing, and I've been, Kelly Asher and I have been working on it, is I'm going to file a grant request for HMIS funding
Great.
for what is called rapid rehousing.
Okay.
And so that I'm going to open it up under the grant when I get it to all 16 of the counties in this area. So that if somebody wants to stay here in Franklin County, I can help them get an apartment there. If somebody wants to move to Anderson or to Scott County or Woodward. Whereas what we have right now is it's 100% limited to Clark County. So and I'm hoping that within 60 days or so, that'll be on board. That I think will make a big difference for
yeah.
us at the men's
Yeah.
shelter.
Definitely.
Well, at this point, if there's anything else you want to plug from the soup kitchen or the men's shelter, I'll let you do that. But I think you've done great, and you've really made the interview kind of easy on us because
Yeah.
you've got a lot to say.
Well, let me put it like this. The shelter's been there for 34 years, since December 7th, 1984. And I'm sure you know why it was started. His name was John Keys. And right here under Capital City Bridge is where they found him. He died on the 5th, and on the 7th they started. Actually, inside I have a wall now that I'm putting up plaques to every one of those 9 guys. Dwayne Ellis, David Taylor, Dr. Bob Knight, all of them. We're putting their, it's my wall of history.
It's great.
But if there's anything that I will plug is there's been one marriage in the history of that. And I got married there January 18th, 2014.
Wow.
That's my church. I see God work there every day. That is where I go to church. And I don't have a home church here in Frankfort. I'm deeply religious, but that's my church. I want people to know this. If you are afraid of the guys that stay there, or if you are afraid of the women that stay at the women's shelters, get to know them. Get to know them. Because what you're going to find out is they're no different than you are. And whether you believe it or not, you're probably going to make friends along the way. And, you know, if you want to come down and just come down and sit and talk with them, or if you want to go to the women's shelter, do it. Because you are looking at something that, when you see somebody homeless, just say, there for the grace of God go I.
Yeah.
Because we're living in a time where it's that possible. The government shutdown proved that to a lot of people. There were people that were in line, and the one that comes to mind was on CNN. He had been working for 19 years, and it was the first time in his life he ever had to go anywhere and ask somebody, can you give me something I can feed my kids with? And he said it humbled him. And he was standing there with a box of food. This man was not somebody who hadn't worked 19 years on the same job, but because of 2 checks, he's so.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing what y'all are doing for our community. It really is.
We're the conduit. I was telling them this earlier. God's doing all this. We're the conduit. Because one of the questions Forrest asked me was, how do you see yourself in the role of people donating and you giving to people? And I said, we're just the conduit. We're the middleman. We don't go out and buy this stuff. I've been doing this, like I said, for 37 years. This is the most generous community I've ever seen in my life.
I would agree with that 100%.
Alex Strom is our candidate, and we were doing some things on taxes this week. And I was looking at a list of all our donors. And I actually printed out a list And he kind of yelled at me in text because I thought I was putting out a list of just last year's donors. It's every donor for like the last 10 years or so. 90% of them are $100 and under. I've got a lady who I know lives on a fixed income. She lives on Social Security. She donates $15 every month like clockwork. Another lady since 1738. Another lady since 25. Our donations are not 10,000. You know, we get a grant from the city, fiscal court. We get something from the city. We get something from United Way. Those are the three big ones. They're less than 10% of our budget. The city of Frankfort, the people, keep us going, and financially, material-wise.
I think
awesome.
the Franklin County Democrats a couple years ago did a fundraiser for the shelter too.
Yeah.
I remember that one specifically. And I agree, this community is by far
It's,
the
I mean,
best.
I've worked,
great.
and I ran a Salvation Army in Houston. I worked, like I said, the one in New York City at Army in Brooklyn. Those were federally funded. We would sign FEMA vouchers every night. Now, they had more money than we got, true. We operate on roughly a $200,000 a year budget with all we do. For a shelter, that's small. For a shelter, that's a very small budget. And for what we do, it's the community. I couldn't give out a single piece of furniture because I don't have money to buy it. We don't have money to buy bus tokens, bus packs, and bus tickets.
Yeah.
I buy them out of my pocket. My staff buys them out of their pocket. Our budget, pretty much, we break even. It covers our mortgage note. It covers the electric. It covers things we have to buy down at Pick Pack each month. And it covers, of course, the payroll and, repairs and stuff. There's not anything really left over for you can do this. So one of the things I'm doing is there is a statute for charitable solicitation.
Yeah.
It hasn't been used in Frankfort in like 11 years. I'm using it. And actually I had a meeting at the United Way interagency meeting this morning, and I passed out copies of the application. And everybody took one, and the King Center, the Women's Shelter, CASA, Bluegrass, they're all going to look at, because what I want to do is, what the permit says is for 7 days out of the year, you can solicit money anywhere. You can set up, all of your volunteers have to have a copy of the permit, and it's like legal panhandling. Think of setting up in the parking lot at the fair. Think of setting up when they're having the concert series downtown. All of that money, I've already told, I had a conversation with our president of the board. I want it designated for paying security deposits and rent deposits for men moving out, because that's something we've never been able to do. If we can raise $3,000, $4,000 on those 7 days, that's $3,000 or $4,000 where I can pay, 30, 40 security deposits, or 30 or 40 utility deposits, and help somebody that much more.
Yeah.
Well,
It's great.
James, thanks so much for being interviewed.
Oh, you're right. I told you I'd talk a lot.
that's
totally fine.
perfect. And this has been another episode of It's Info Time at the Apollo.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll definitely have you back. And if you can think of anybody who wants to come down and be interviewed, send them our
Okay.
way.
Definitely.